Speaking of which, let me
You wanna black that
shut
out?
that down. How was your meeting? Yeah, is that right here? How long is it
No,
here?
I'm gonna have to take it from,
Enjoy.
I'll take care of that.
Welcome everyone to Toastmasters Leadership Club. We are a small but mighty. My name is Paula Foster. I'm the Vice President of Education and the person under our President, Eddie Cater, who is not feeling well this evening. And so it's my duty to get the meeting started, and I would like to welcome everyone and our guest, and we'll get you introduced in just a moment. But I'd like us first all to stand, and we are going to say a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And weekly we read or quote, if we can, I have to read it, the mission of a Toastmasters Club, which is we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. I had the opportunity last night to speak at a club celebrating their 63rd anniversary, and part of my presentation had to do with the future. Actually, my whole presentation was about the future of a club in Toastmasters and the fact that we can't rely on the past experiences and records and achievements of people who went before us. We have to look towards the future. And part of it I spoke about was that a club should have a mission, so they know where it is that that club wants to go, because every club is uniquely different. And so Toastmasters Leadership Club has worked diligently for months to put together this club mission. We develop and empower members to communicate and lead effectively in Toastmasters in their personal and in their professional and in their community. Professional life, their personal and professional life, and in their community. Sorry, I left out a word and it didn't make a whole lot of sense without that one word. At this time, I would like to, Allison, is the lovely lady to your right a guest of yours? Would you?
Sure.
Well, or maybe you met her downstairs. How about you introduce her to the group? I don't just met her downstairs.
Oh, do I stand?
You may, please do.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Maria Ruiz. I'm a student at DeVry University. I am currently taking a course on public speaking. And so as part of that course, a requirement is for me to go out and visit different Toastmasters locations and see what's going on and try to improve my public speaking skills.
All right. Well, we welcome you here. We actually used to meet at DeVry University, surprisingly. And we welcome you. We'll kind of explain things. The Toastmaster of the evening, which is another one of our members, will kind of explain things as we go along. We have a unique setup here in this particular club, and he will explain what that is so that you kind of understand the whole process, even though you might not understand the whole process.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, and thank you very much for letting me sit in with you guys today.
Absolutely. Welcome, welcome. Keep us on track so that we don't get too far past our timeline that we have. I would like to introduce our Toastmaster of the evening, our past president of Toastmasters Leadership Club and current district PRO officer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Please welcome Justin Lola.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Thank you. Good.
So our meeting this night is what they call, or what we call, is a high performance leadership project type of meeting. So in simple terms, it's project leadership. And there's two of them, actually there's one tonight. We usually have two. The second one is a presentation from our leadership series, which Tyree's going to do. So this is versus what we do on the odd weeks, which is speeches. We have 3 speeches on the first and third week of every month. So just a little background for you, Maria.
Okay, thank you.
We've got a fantastic meeting today. Our theme today is collaboration, which we will be collaborating heavily today because we are missing a few people on the agenda. And actually, that's the first thing I'd like to hit on the agenda, is just to fill up the roles. We have Tyree, which is stepping in for the invocation and humorous, so go ahead and jot or update your agenda there.
I'm doing the humor. I signed up for it.
You are?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yay.
That's cool.
Okay, so Allison, back to Allison.
You
Back
say,
to Allison.
no, you know how glad I am to hear that. Haters gonna hate.
All right, and we do need a general evaluator. So I need for someone to step up who's not
Okay.
in a
see,
role. There we
all
go.
right.
Randy
Randy.
Ellington. And Randy. It's the last name Blington, right?
Blaine. Blaine. How many times I gotta say it? Blaine. Mr. Blaine.
Blaine. Randy Blaine.
Yeah, right. Toastmaster of the year.
Our all counter was Joy, although I don't see her here. I didn't see an email.
I think she said she was gonna be busy. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, but I can serve as odd counter for Marion.
Maybe it wasn't her.
You want to do that?
I was
Yes.
going to serve as grammarian.
Oh,
You
okay.
want to do all counter too?
Yeah, you got it? You got the sheet already?
You got that, Bob?
Well, odd counter and grammarian. Certainly, I can take both of them.
Double
dip.
dip. All right, so it'll be Bob.
Okay.
And there's a word of the day at the top there of the agenda, so you can just use that.
Thank you.
And I do need a timekeeper.
That I can do.
Paula.
I will
All
take
right,
care of
thank
that.
you, Paula. All right. Excellent. So at this point, let's bring up Tyree to do the invocation. Tyree Johnson.
Hey, thank you. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guest Maria.
Thank you.
The strength of Toastmasters is in its members. It isn't in the strength of numbers, but our strength is in our actions in which we show people our value. Tonight, may we speak with values that will inspire, encourage, and uplift many hearts. We want to continue to grow and show that communication skills are imperative to foster permanent growth in our members. So that at the end of the day, Toastmasters can tell you, we provide free speech worth listening to. Madam Toastmaster, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Terry. And throughout the meeting, we'll have different roles. Terry did the invocation. I'm the Toastmaster, what they call the Toastmaster, which is the master of ceremony. So I am essentially guiding the entire meeting throughout its entirety. And to help collaborate together and work together and try and make this the best meeting possible. The next person coming up is our humorist, and you may know her, Maria. It's Allison Bliss.
Yay!
This is inexplicably valueless. 3 Toastmasters and 3 accountants were traveling by train to a conference. At the station, the 3 accountants bought their 3 tickets, and they watched as the 3 Toastmasters bought one. How are 3 people going to travel on 1 ticket? Asked the accountant. Watch and you'll see, said the Toastmaster. They all boarded the train. The accountants took their respective seats, but the 3 Toastmasters all crammed into one restroom, shut the door. Shortly after the train departed, The conductor came around collecting tickets. He knocked on the restroom door and said, "Tickets, please. Tickets, please." And the little door opened a crack and one little hand crept out and handed the ticket. The conductor took it and moved on. Well, the accountant saw this and agreed it was quite inexplicably clever. So after the conference, the accountants decided to copy the Toastmasters and on the return trip to save some money, being clever accountants that they were.
Yeah.
When they got to the station, they just bought one ticket for three accountants. To their astonishment, the Toastmasters didn't buy any tickets at all.
Huh.
"How are you going to raid the stream without a ticket?" asked the engineer, or one of the accountants. "Watch and you'll see," said the Toastmaster. When they boarded the train, the three accountants crammed into a restroom, and the three Toastmasters crammed into another one nearby. The train departed, and shortly afterwards, one of the Toastmasters left his restroom and walked over to the restroom where the accountants were. He knocked on the door and said, "Tickets, please." Tickets, please. Thank you.
Yeah! Thank you, Allison.
Bad values, sorry.
Now, at every meeting, we have what we call a general evaluator. And what this person does is they listen throughout the entire meeting, and then at the end, they give the Toastmaster a high five and buy him dinner.
I think they're used to that.
No, I'm just kidding. What they do is they give you feedback on how well the meeting went and any areas for improvement. So tonight, we've got Randy Ellington coming up to be the general evaluator. Randy Ellington. Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome. Did you say something about dinner? It was dinner.
Actually, I probably do owe you a dinner, don't I?
You do. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. The general evaluator demonstrates one of the three important components of a Toastmasters meeting. We learn to give speeches, we learn to think on our feet, and we learn how to listen and give creative feedback. My responsibility as general evaluator is to monitor the meeting, work with the evaluation team, which includes the grammarian, the odd counter, and the timer, and then to give my overall assessment at the end of the meeting. Since this is the first time I've been general evaluator for this club, I'm going to defer and ask for protocol. Am I to call the grammarian now?
Yeah.
My first responsibility is to call the grammarian, who will present the word of the day and explain his roles. Our grammarian today is Bob DiMichelli.
My role as the grammarian will be to make sure that your usage of words and your choice of words are correct, and that any misuse of a phrase or a word, malapropism, is noted. The word of the day is explicable. I'm grammarian today because it's explicable with very busy schedules that we have that some of our members could not make it today. The definition of the word explicable is able to be accounted for or understood. Often it's used in the negative inexplicable. We've heard that often. That is my role as the Toastmaster. I'm sorry, that's my role as the grammarian today.
Thank you. Are you also the odd counter?
Today I'm also the odd counter. It's explicable that I'm the odd counter. This is because with all our busy schedules, sometimes we schedule to be here, schedule to take a role, we can't make it. I will be the odd counter when you use ahs, so's, or a filler phrase that's not part of the dialogue, but it's used for a pause or for that you can refresh your speech. We count all of those. At the end of the meeting, I will sum those up and let you know which you use.
Thank you. Another important component skill that we learn in Toastmasters is the ability to manage time. to give succinct speeches within a time frame, to be able to give reasonable feedback within a short time frame. Today, our manager of time will be our very own past district governor, Paul Foster.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow members, and honored guests. The timer's role is exactly as Randy explained, to keep track of our time. It helps us keep on time here, but it also teaches us how to do that outside of this meeting. And there are several areas that we specifically look towards. Our speeches, and in this case, we're going to have some longer presentations, and I'm gonna check on those times in just a moment. The evaluation session, which is a 5-minute total period of evaluation that will consist of a single evaluator and then round robin by the group. And table topics. Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes. So what the speaker will see is the green light at 1 minute, at 1.5 the yellow, and red at the maximum time, which is 2 minutes, and you have 30 seconds to wrap up in order to qualify for voting. And because our speeches are a little bit longer, I want to double check. Steve,
10 to 15.
10 to
So
15?
10 green,
Okay,
12,
no Q&A afterwards, correct?
I think there is.
Yeah.
5
Are you
minutes.
including that in your 10 to 15?
No, I'm not. Yeah, it's, the agenda is the way I want it, 10 to 15, and then 5-minute Q&A.
Okay.
Right.
And Tyree, yours is just 10 to 15 period?
Right. A 5-minute Q&A. It, you know.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that for each of you. So in this case, the green light will go up at 10 minutes, at 12.5 the yellow, and at 15 the red. And all speakers have 30 seconds to wrap up.
Thank you
That
very
is,
much.
I will report that kind of throughout the meeting so we can vote.
So that is our evaluation team. You will hear from them later on. And Maria, you will see the value of Toastmasters will be completely explicable by the end of the meeting.
Ooh.
Thank you, Randy. Hey, Joy.
Hi.
Hey.
How you doing, Joy?
It's been interesting. How about you guys? Is someone taking over the off-camera role, or can I pull it over to you?
Bob has it. It's.
You can have it back? I'll do
You want it back?
Happily, if you can.
I think there's one sheet for the odd counter over there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Do you have an explicable explanation of why you're late?
I thought I could mediate a argument on the bus.
Oh, okay.
And I did successfully, but I still had to give a police report. So.
Mark me down, Bob.
Glad you can make it,
Her
Joy.
speech would be more interesting
Huh?
than mine right now.
Glad you can make it.
Yeah.
Mark me down, Bob.
No, not for that.
What you need? All right,
I do-
couple housekeeping items. Make sure your phone is off
Ooh.
or on vibrate. I mean, I'm sure your ringtones are fantastic, but we don't want to be hearing them in the middle of a speech. Second is dignitaries. We have quite a few dignitaries in this room. So I'd like to mention who they are. We actually have our Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, Steve Today.
Yeah.
We have 2 past district governors, Tyree Johnson and Paula Foster. We have our Division D governor, Randy Ellington.
Yeah.
All right, Randy. And Toastmaster of the Year, he just got his updated trophy this past Saturday, which has his name, was it spelled correctly this
Yeah, I
time?
have a doorstop too.
So we've got an important day up in front. Our public relations officer,
Right.
Jesse Lola.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Alright, so we are going to start our meeting right now. Our first speaker, actually, just to confirm, the evaluator for Steve is Ken.
Oh, okay.
Just want to make sure you know.
I didn't know.
You signed
Does
up
Ken
for
have
it.
one of the,
Yes,
I
make
did?
sure, Ashley, make sure you've got an evaluation
Okay.
sheet,
Yeah.
and everyone should have one as well.
Looks
Go
like
ahead
this,
and
Neil.
jot some notes down.
Yeah, it looks like this,
Some
right there.
feedback for Steve. If you don't speak with him or speak in the 3 to 5 minutes, you can always hand this to him at the end, so he has your feedback.
Can you get one of them? Should we have one of the workbooks? The HPL workbook, or is that sheet sufficient?
That's essentially the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, our first speaker is Steve Today. He has been a Toastmaster for 6 years, serving in club officer positions, area governor, division governor, and now lieutenant governor of marketing. He's also been public relations.
Public relations officer.
Yeah, you were last year. Tonight, Steve will introduce his high-performance leadership project and discuss the skills that he intends to develop as he fills his role on the District 57 trio this year. Let's welcome Steve.
Ready to go. Fellow Toastmasters, our welcome guest Maria. One of the things we do in Toastmasters is not only public speaking, but the tagline with Toastmasters is where leaders are made. And one of the things we do is what's called the High Performance Leadership Project, where we can take on pretty much any kind of project we like and put together a team and lead them into a successful year. And tonight, I'm going to talk about my role this year as what's called Lieutenant Governor of Marketing. This Toastmasters Leadership Club is a single Toastmasters club that is part of one of, about 93 districts in the world?
Yeah.
Is that about right? There's about 93 districts. There's 4 districts in Northern California. And we're District 57, and each district has what's called a trio. A district governor, Tyree and Paula were district governors, a lieutenant governor of education and training, which handles the educational portion of Toastmasters. And then we're always marketing, because we're always trying to grow. We've currently got about 15,000 clubs in 126 different countries. So Toastmasters is all over the world, and we're continuing to grow. And we hope that you like us. And this year, I decided to make a high-performance leadership project out of my year as Lieutenant Governor of Marketing. What does a high-performance leadership project mean to me? And I've grappled with that for a couple years. Tyree and I had extensive conversations on that because I was what's called the high-performance leadership chair the year that Paula was district governor. And I didn't realize it when I took on the job, but the biggest question you get, the question we get the most often, does this project qualify for an HPL? Columbus could have gone to Queen Isabella and asked her if that qualified as an HPL. Another person went to their division governor and asked if helping my grandmother move was a high performance. I'm not going to discover the new world, but I think, what I'm doing here qualifies. I got to thinking a little more about it, and this is the second time I've done a high performance leadership project. If I'm successful, it'll be the second time I've become a DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster. Aside from people in Toastmasters, I think there's 2 people that know I'm a Distinguished Toastmaster, and that's my wife and my mother. And I'm not saying that to be funny, but I don't think Tyree or any other Distinguished Toastmaster walks down the street and just says, "Hi, my name is Steve Taddy," or "My name is Tyree Johnson, I'm a DTM." We just don't do that. But there's a lot of people I know that I, along with a group of people, ran a really good golf tournament. We raised about $9,000 to give members of our organization's children a college scholarship. So the high performance leadership is the end of the process, but what we remember over the long term is what the project was. So if you ever do an HPL project and you ask if something qualifies, it's in here. So I think you know if your project's gonna qualify just by thinking about it. If you're just trying to do it so you can get your Distinguished Toastmaster, it might qualify, but if you're really into the project and you want it to be successful, there's a good chance it's gonna qualify. So that's kind of what I came up with. Tyree and I talked about it, and we really came to agreement on that. What does Lieutenant Governor of Marketing mean to me? One of the reasons I became intrigued to become a Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, a member of the trio, was a really good experience I had when I was Division Governor. Now, I'm really sorry tonight Eddie's not here, Eddie Cater, because Eddie was an area governor the year I was a Division Governor, and we had an incredible year. There were 5 areas. There was Werner, there was Eddie, there was Margaret Austin, there was Trish Gray, and there was Sushma. And I didn't know how rare it was that year, but most of the 6 of us went to every deco. We pretty much had a full house every time. And the only time people missed it was when we had our real challenges. I lost my father that year. 2 other people had deaths in the family. But we got through it, and we built this trust and we built this team that was just incredible. And we knew we had something good the first month when we did the officers' makeup training. So I said, wow, this is so fun. You don't have to do it alone. And I think if we can have the same principle, it could be a good year as on the trio. And this was my pay for that year. And one time at Deckham, and like I said, I knew everybody would be there because they always were, we had a picture taken. I've got that in a prominent place in my house, and I will always remember the group when I was Division Governor. And I've got the same thing, I think, going this year because Randy is a Division Governor, working closely with the trio. We've got Kimberly Whitaker, we've got Kevin Markle, we've got Junie, we've got Joan Funkhauser, I know she's sometimes here, and I wish she was here tonight, Ed Cullen, and then Tony Navarro. So we've got an incredible group of division governors, and I think we're all going to trust us and trust each other. And at the end of the year, I think we're gonna look back, and whatever the results are, we're going to really cherish the year we had together. So what about the book? And the first chapter of the manual is what our strong points are in leadership. And these are the 5 areas: vision and values, direction, persuasion, support, development, and appreciation. I was strongest on the appreciation. I feel real good about that. I think, bottom line, I thank people when they help me, and I make sure everybody on the team knows how valuable they are. The lowest part was direction, and that just comes from organizational skills I have to build, and I'll get into that later. The other ones, I'm pretty middle of the road. I'm going to look at this because I learned something when Mary Verghese did her high performance leadership project. She mentioned she had scores of what her skills are as a Toastmaster, and she felt she was a better leader as a Toastmaster than she was in her real life, in the job or whatever, in the outside world. There's just something she felt comfortable with about Toastmasters, that she felt real good about it. And I'm not sure if that's the case with me, but it's something I'm going to take into consideration, and I'm going to value your opinions as the guidance committee on what you think of me as a leader and how you can translate it, or how I can translate it into my professional life. As this goes on this year, I'm going to give you some details about my professional life, some of the differences between how I have to behave there compared to how I can behave here. The difference between the corporate world, and I'm essentially around a bunch of my friends, and I can kind of goof around a little bit more here than I do other places. What am I good at? I think I'm pretty good at the vision and values. I think I have confidence. I'm creative. I can generate a team spirit, and I'm good at the appreciation. I like the fact that there's a cake because we started something this year at our district executive council meetings, that every month when we have a brand new club, we're going to celebrate with a cake. And we've had 3 meetings and we've had 2 cakes. So we've got 2 new clubs. There's a possibility we're going to have 5 by the next Deckham. So if you want to get a piece of cake, come to our district. And there's also some other entertainment. Where can I improve? And they talk about specific areas in the different parts of leadership. And one of the things they talk about is staying up on the news. And I think I do that, but I think it's also something I can improve on. And the last time I came to Toastmasters Leadership Club, Tyree did table topics, and it was really challenging. And you asked me my thoughts on the group of young people that were sitting at the border trying to get to the United States. And I think I probably gave the lamest table topics answer ever, because I just wasn't there. I mean, I just didn't have a good answer in me. And I got to thinking about the news. At that time, the Malaysian airplane got shut down. There was the thing that's what's still going on now in the Middle East with the ISIS. There are just so many things that are happening. Anybody that's an expert on anything, on everything, is really spending a lot of time doing that. And it's a challenge for me. I'm going to work on it, but I think it's a real challenge right now. I'm going to work on acting boldly. I think sometimes I think things out and I wait a little bit. I've got to work on delegating. I'm a salesperson. I work alone all the time. I'm responsible for my numbers, and I don't really delegate a lot. And I'm going to work on goal setting. I'm going to work on keeping track, time management, and keeping track of the big picture. Big picture is interesting. Tyree told me something a couple years ago about when Michael Notaro was district governor. And then Michael Notaro was at Deckham on Saturday. And in so many words, he said exactly what Tyree said. And when it comes to being a district officer, the big picture is building new clubs. And there's a lot of other responsibilities we have, but the big picture is building new clubs. And you don't want to get bogged down on a lot of the other things. I've got to get better at coaching. I've never coached anything, other than kind of helping kids a little bit with sports. And the budget, we just did that. In fact, it has to be in September 30th. It got signed off and the district governor sent it in today, so we had plenty of time. But it was a challenge for me. I usually just go right to work. I'm not a person that overspends, or I'm not irresponsible with money, but when you look at a whole district budget, it's huge. It's not only a lot of money, but there's a lot of slots you fill. And when I first looked at it, and this is the first time I've done it, it was pretty intimidating. Formal leadership versus earned leadership. Now, another thing that's cool about this Toastmasters Leadership Club is everybody in this room has had a formal leadership position. District governor is a formal leadership position. Division governor is a formal leadership position. Public relations officer is the same thing. Everybody in this room also has an earned leadership position. Now, a perfect example was last night at the Area 22 contest. Tyree was the target speaker, and at the end of the meeting, he talked about the evening coming up in October at Laugh Lovers. There were maybe 3 people in the room that were in Toastmasters when you were district governor. At the most, you know, Jim Ferris, Bill Mine, maybe a couple of others. But when you got up there, everybody had the feeling you had an earned leadership position. You had the presence, and you knew what you were talking about, and the way you were introduced. And it's been several years since you were district governor, but just the way you present yourself in the district and the way you offer mentoring and things like that, you've got the earned position. I think everybody in this room, I think Paula has it. Randy and Justin, like I said, have the formal position, but they also have the earned position too. So I hope, you know, I do well with the earned position based on what I do with the formal position and just the way I handle myself. So that's what I have planned, and I would like to just go around the room and have a discussion with everybody, answer questions you might have, and get your feedback on where we might go from here.
Would you go back to your slide on the, with your measurement on the 6 dimensions? Yes. So direction. Persuasion, I think, I think persuasion is really key, particularly for you as a lieutenant governor of marketing, because you're gonna be the outside man to talk to people who don't know anything about Toastmasters, let alone being able to persuade people
Right.
inside. Yeah. What tools do you think are important to be effective in persuasion?
Confidence, knowledgeable on what Toastmasters is about, what we're trying to accomplish, how it could help a company. I've got a mantra, and I started it at the officers training, where every one of you that works in an organization has the ability to change the culture of your company, your workplace by yourself. If you start a Toastmasters club at your company, you're changing the culture. You can have a director of human resources giving an icebreaker speech that's evaluated by an administrative assistant who's a DTM. And you've got employees from all through the company that are showing off their skills and shining in front of managers from all over the company. So that's basically my pitch to any organization I talk with, and from there we can have a conversation. Paula?
Part of the program for the HBL is to gather around you a team of people, and so I to gather that the division governors are going to be your working team for your year, along with the assistance of the area governors, but is it primarily going to be the division governors?
Well, the division governor is gonna oversee everything, and I've got a relationship with every one of them. Randy gets an email every time something happens in Division D.
Okay.
We've got a couple of things in Division A that Kimberly Whitaker gets an email on, and what we're gonna find in all the divisions is if there's one division governor and 4 or 5 area governors, they're all going to have their strong points, they're gonna all have their areas they wanna develop. So like, for instance, one of the things I wanna get started with in October, November is getting mailings out. Where if we mail 20 letters to 20 different organizations that might benefit from Toastmasters, that's basically 3 per division. So if each division can maybe make 3 phone calls a week, and it doesn't have to be the same person, there might be a division governor that's real good at that. There might be a division governor that just doesn't want to do that, but they've got a gung-ho area governor. So the division governor will oversee it, but the area governors will, they'll work together with the area governors.
Okay,
Make sense?
I understand that. The point, though, of you being the leader of a team, I apologize here, I'm gonna hit this,
Oh, no problem.
is that you have a group, a specific named group of people that are part of your team. And that, going back to that, one of those things that you said was very hard to do, and that is to delegate.
Mm-hmm.
So your job is not to do all of the work. Your
Right.
job is to delegate to your team of people, and it could be the division governors in specific, or it could be another group of team. Maybe somebody who's really good in getting out ad promos and doing that kind of thing. Somebody who is your promotion guy with Facebook or the internet. Somebody who is controlling those new leads that you get from Toastmasters International. That team of people, you've got to gather around you, and they should be specific people, if I am not mistaken, of the intent of you being the leader of that team.
Okay, I'll
As
give you an
opposed
example
to
of
just
that.
a
Right.
general,
Okay.
everybody's gonna help me.
Okay, well, the main team is the division governors, and I
Okay.
think we've established that.
That's a large team, that's
Right.
32 people
No,
that you have
that's
those.
7.
Seven.
Division
Oh, you
governors.
said area governors.
Okay, no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
he said-
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's all right.
I apologize.
So the 7 division governors, and then it'll be fed off a lot to area governors too, but I'll give you a perfect example today. The mailing, that's one of those things I talked about where I need to act boldly, and I've kind of been at, somebody talked about it at the international convention, it's been about 3 weeks, and I finally wrapped my arms around what I want to do. So I got the concept, who's gonna write the letter, so I sent an email. Sue Han wants to kind of be an unofficial assistant. She's intrigued by all these offices, and she wants to take a look at what I'm doing, and she wants to take a look at what Terry McDonald's doing. So I sent her an email today, and I asked her to draft a letter that'll go out to these companies. And I gave her some ideas, you know, on what I want included, and she'll get back to me with a letter. So that's the type of thing I'm delegating. And then, like I said, every time I get something based on where it's located, I contact the division governor. So I see a red light there. Do we have a second for one more question?
It's up to you.
I'll take one more,
Doesn't mean that.
because he's the public relations officer, so he's.
And the reason why I'm asking is because of that. How can I support you in your success for this year?
How can you support me? There's a lot of things we're doing that I haven't talked about, that I'll talk about later. You know, you supported me on the September stretch. And there's some Toastmasters things called Beat, you know, we just had Smedley, there's gonna be Beat the Clock. There's gonna be Talk Up Toastmasters, those are international contests. And just various things that go on. So what I need to do is, when I have something going, I just need to let you know. And then the MailChimp, the website, and the social media are the big things.
So one request I have is get me involved soon
Right.
versus
Last
they
minute.
need this and they need it tomorrow.
Right.
So the sooner, even in the planning stages, because at this point I'm not hearing anything from the district governor or the lieutenant governor of education either until they actually need it. So, you know, get me involved
Right.
early.
So if I say, rather than tomorrow, yeah, I need to say a couple weeks from now or a month from now.
Or even
Yeah.
6 months,
Yeah.
9 months. Seriously.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
important.
that's how I can know when I need to do things,
Mhm.
and I'm also involved in the whole planning process.
That's the big picture.
Versus,
That's a big picture.
yeah, versus having
That's a big
something to
picture.
do, and just
Right.
toss it over, and I have no engagement,
Right,
no collaboration.
right. Sounds good.
I'm gonna ask you one more question, it's a
Sure.
quick question. What is your new club goal for this year?
My new club
Number.
goal
Number.
is 14,
Okay.
2 per division. And I am really confident in that. We're off to a good start.
Wow.
And we're gonna have 14. I'll call my shot right now. We said 14 before the year started, and now we're gonna have 14.
All right.
Mr. Toastmaster.
Madam Timer, give us 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay?
Which of the, I don't understand which form, we have a couple of different forms here. What are we
There
supposed
should
to
be
do?
all, they should be ones that say number one. I'm sorry?
No, but look, this one's different. I didn't know.
Shouldn't be the one that,
It says number 1 on it.
should say be the one that said number 1.
Yeah, so this just has some additional information, otherwise you get this.
Do you want 2 minutes? Or
Yes,
one?
2.
One minute.
Stay up here, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I want to remember to write notes, because I know people get suggestions.
Yeah. 2 minutes.
Okay.
Pens down? Just kidding. Let me bring up Steve, the evaluator Ken Bukowski. Come on up, Ken.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I've never done a high performance leadership program. This is not anything that I'm used to, so I'm,
It's just on the presentation.
okay, all right. I mean, I think, you had a good presentation, you had a very good explanation. If nothing else came through, your sincerity certainly came through. You had the audience laughing, you had the audience engaged. You know, raising money for scholarships, I think that's great. I mean, if it qualifies in your heart, I mean, that's certainly something that's notable. You know, I wasn't sure when you said in the beginning, get through it. I didn't know what you were getting through, because I'm not familiar with this, so I just wasn't sure what that was. I guess I understand why you have assembled a group of leaders. I guess they'll be the best ones to advise you, so that's gonna be good. You said a lot of great things here. You're asking questions, where can you improve? I'm not sure. Well, you know, when you asked the question about, when this person said that they do better in Toastmasters than in their personal life, that made me think of, if you're in a leadership situation where people have personal interests, then that's gonna get in the way of a lot of your leadership goals, because people, you don't know what other people's motivations are, and so when you try to do something, there's always somebody there trying to do something different, and that's what makes it very difficult going through things. So in Toastmasters, it's great because everybody's friends and you have a friendly audience, but out in the real world, you got people trying to cut your throat and do all these things, and so I think that's probably the difference.
It could be.
I mean, I know I served on the city council for 24 years, and you want to do great things, but you got, you know, other people on that board that have other ideas, and they don't want you to get too popular, and there's all kinds of things that go on. That doesn't matter what good ideas you have, it's getting them done that makes the difference. So I don't know if that's any help. Staying up on the news, well, you know what? If you stay up on the news, you can't focus on all the things you're trying to do. There's a lot of news out there, and you can't always be on top of it. You know, I tend not to look at the news, and probably one of the more embarrassing moments that I had when I was mayor, and we had that Poly class killing, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. Someone wanted me to join a meeting in honor of Poly class, and I said, "Who's that?" And everybody just got real quiet. You know, I mean, but that's you know, I don't watch the news. I'm sorry. So anyway, time management, I think that's really important. I think that's one of the most understated things that people have to deal with every day, whether it's Toastmasters or anything else. Let's see. Now, on this questionnaire, it asks how the high performance leadership program works and can it be applied to my project. And I don't have a project, and I don't really know how it works yet.
But how did he talk about it?
That's a question to him.
Yeah.
Well, I got the message about what you were doing, but I don't know what the whole program is about.
Okay.
I mean, I see all the details of how you're gonna improve and all the better things you do, but I'm not sure I know what the whole program is about.
Yeah, the main part of the program, actually Paula said it best, it's about assembling a team and leading a group of people to do great things.
Okay, so you used to do everything yourself, and now you're gonna be doing it with
In
a
my
team?
real job, I do everything myself, and I was successful with a golf tournament, and I'm hoping to have success with this because I can assemble a lot of people to help.
Okay, well, you know that nobody's gonna do the job as good as you, right? You're gonna have all these people that are gonna be helping you, but nobody can ever do it as good as you, because you wouldn't know what you want, and everybody else doesn't know what you want.
That's the $64,000 question.
So I mean, anyway, so I think you've done a great job, and welcome, and good luck.
Thank you.
Sure.
Wait, Ken, you have to ask the rest of the group
Yeah, so you get-
for
So
comments.
now
5
you
minutes.
facilitate the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Listen,
they got a
See if
minute.
there anyone else wants to.
Anyone have any
Minute
comments? Joy?
Steve, I really liked how when you were talking, you kept everybody really engaged. You kept including them, and you looked at people and you made good eye contact. Occasionally, when you were thinking about something, you did the normal human being thing and you said, which is common. So.
Okay, thanks.
Paul?
I enjoyed the visuals. I thought they were easy, clean, clear, not a bunch of words covering them over. And although you did occasionally look at them and you have to watch talking to them at the same time, I think that we could easily tell exactly what you were talking about with, when they were shown.
Tom?
I liked your presentation, Steve. I liked the images, and I thought your self-assessment on the 6 portions of leadership, that was pretty realistic and good. One thing I wasn't too clear on at all was actually what you're supposed to outline a project, clearly what it is, and what the vision of that is. Maybe that comes in the next print, but I didn't really get it all pretty clear.
Yeah, that doesn't come at this time.
Okay, but I'm looking for that, and I'll have to
Okay, great.
succeed in all this.
Thank you.
No more?
Yeah.
I had only one more comment. I didn't know what the difference between the earned position and the formal position was.
Yeah, the formal position would be, this year, I'm officially Lieutenant Governor of Marketing.
Okay.
So, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm the guy. You were the mayor, that was formal. But earned is what you get by either your presence or your integrity or whatever. And that's why I mentioned Tyree and Paula, where they had both, well, everybody in this room had both the earned and the formal. Right.
Great, all right, thank you.
Thank
All right.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break because I need to set Tyree up for the next presentation. How's everyone doing? Ready to go?
Great.
Ready to rock and roll. Okay, our second presenter tonight is Tyree Johnson. Tyree is going to present Toastmasters International, the Leader Excellence Series. It's a set of presentations addressing the subject of leadership. Members will learn about the skills they will need to be successful leaders inside and outside of Toastmasters. The world needs strong, competent leaders now more than ever before. Effective leaders are needed not only in government and industry, but in our communities and civic organizations as well. Even in Toastmasters, the difference between a successful club and an unsuccessful club is the quality of leadership within the club. Leadership abilities are not inherited. That means we all have hope. Just like communication skills, leadership skills are learned and honed through experience by facing challenges and learning from failures and successes. Tyree, as your presenter today, will offer some of his own unique insights of coaching leadership in conjunction with the material. He has been a member of this club. He's been a member of District 57 Toastmasters since 2001. He's a charter member of this club, which means he helped start the club. He has served in an officer position with many clubs as well as in the district leadership. He's been district governor and also lieutenant governor of education and marketing. Please welcome Tyree Johnson as he presents the Leader Excellence Series, The Leader as Coach. Welcome, Tyree.
Thank you, Justin. Fellow Toastmasters, people at the camera, guests. The leader as coach. You heard that song by, I think it's John Fogerty, Put Me in, Coach. Well, as a leader, and thank you, Steve, for giving us that segue of you wanting to be able to coach others and never having that experience, is what will make this presentation very relevant. I hope that all this material will be explicable to anyone thinking about doing something in the servant leadership position. There's some universal principles in terms of being a coach. And that is because a coach is usually leading a team, a squad, or organization in a certain direction. Everything that Steve talked about today was very, very relevant in talking about the 6 principles. And one area of improvement that he thought he'd like to really concentrate on was direction. Providing clear direction in any organization means that you know what the end result is going to be. You have a vision bounded by your values of the direction you want to go. The 49ers, their direction is to get to the Super Bowl, right? Manchester United is to win the Premier Cup.
When we have the World Cup of soccer, it's to win that Golden Globe. There are a lot of different things, and certainly sports is one. You can move into politics if Hillary's going to run for president, and so on down the line. But there is a clear direction of where you want to go. You can see in the political world when that direction becomes fuzzy, that the natives become restless. The team becomes unsettled. The foster collaboration is a really important part of being part of a team and being a leader. That there will inevitably be some kind of conflict. Conflict can be personal, philosophical, intellectual, emotional. All those types of conflicts can come about. But when you set an environment of cooperation and open-mindedness, I think you can allow those ideas to come to the surface and be wrestled with and not be inhibited for the group to move forward in the right direction. Motivated achievement, and we're going to talk about this a little later on, but as a coach, you're going to set standards of performance and excellence. And in order for that to happen, you really have to have people, again, see a clear goal, but more importantly, have a passion and an interest in achieving that goal. There's nothing more deflating than to say, take that hill, and everybody says, my feet hurt. They don't feel as though that's the goal they want to go. And Steve, I'm going to offer you all of my support and insight, because leading the charge is what's going to be really key for you. I think when we say that we can't do it all ourselves, but how do we persuade others to be part of our team? And so that when the end result, you accomplish that direction, we can say, we did it. Not that I did it or I led you. We did it together. So some fundamentals of coaching. Again, have some clearly defined tasks and roles. And I would really focus, my experience has always said, focus on the task at hand. Everybody can have varying roles, and things are going to happen in life that will take some of your key players out of those roles. That doesn't mean the task falls to the wayside. The tasks still need to be done. So just because, Allison, you may be vice president of membership, or that you were the secretary for your group, or you're the proprietor, and you had nothing to do with print ads. Well, the person who's doing your print ads has to go on maternity leave. You need to make sure that task gets done. And so it is with a coach to have that big picture idea and that philosophy to make sure that they know what people are supposed to do. You can be empowered by knowing the direction and the tasks that are at hand. The passion comes in, why are you doing it? Again, we say, take that hill. My feet hurt. But there's a pot of gold there. Oh, they don't hurt that much. Right? Why are you doing what you're doing? And I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves continually. To question ourselves, question our team, question the people, our customers. Why do you need this? In a subtle manner. But sometimes they need it just for some emotional appeasement. I would hope that the direction we're going is that it will further and uplift the overall environment and people who are involved. Right? But it's really interesting to find out what are those triggers to get you to understand why we're doing something as a group. This is where the rubber meets the road. How are we supposed to do it? It's like, I bought in, my feet hurt, but I want that gold. How are we going to get it? Because I can barely make it. Or I don't think we're equipped to get there. I have no experience as a lieutenant governor of marketing. I've seen others before me try it and they fell short. Well, the how really comes in to play when we open it up to all the ideas that people have, and you foster that collaboration to vet them, right? To prioritize them, to give some kind of risk along with the timetable in which you have. And sometimes that may come in terms of shaping your journey. I had a conversation with your Toastmaster boss, Todd Henry, earlier, and some things may not get accomplished in the time period that we're charged with. That doesn't mean that the goal of getting everybody involved is not worthwhile. How to do it really calls for a team effort in seeing all those different areas. Now, sometimes the how will call for a one-person job. If your vision is clear and you know Steve Jobs was great at this. He was singularly in charge of making sure that Apple was going to be the universally used personal computing effort. And he really didn't care about other people's opinions that were distractions from that goal. Okay? How well are you expected to do it? Again, as a coach, you give that atmosphere, you give that support to the team to understand that you have their back. That's what support is all about. That we're going to give our full effort. I'm going to help you up that hill with all your tired feet because I know that when we get there, it'll be worth the effort. And leaving no one behind, having everyone part of that group makes the journey so much enriching for satisfying you to the destination. I stated earlier that you are also given the charge of setting expectations. So a coach is always checking in to the milestones that you're to make along with the progress. So we just don't have eternity to get things done. The woulda, shoulda, coulda is a question that people go to the grave with. And if you're willing to accept that, that's okay. I think leaders who are successful, particularly servant leaders, which what we strive to have in Toastmasters, says that we can be honest with ourselves, look at the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, but then have that respect and integrity to share that with the rest of the team. I think showing that you're vulnerable and you're open-minded to ideas really gives you credibility as a coach. So the coach's responsibility is to set high but achievable expectations. I've been a coach in a lot of different areas. I've not coached kids soccer, but I actually coached several co-ed soccer teams and men's soccer teams. I've coached people in certain tournaments and a lot of other things in terms of trying to accomplish a goal. And I have to tell you that it is really painful when the goal is the bottom of the floor. When I first took over my first soccer team, we were a ragtag bunch, and the guy who got us organized just said, "Hey, I just want to go out and have fun." It was no fun getting beat 7-0. You know, it was no fun being out there and feeling as though that losing was inevitable, but being embarrassed was even worse. And so you want to set the expectations so that people truly find whatever is their potential and are reaching that. And each iteration, they're coming to another level of what their potential is. And that'll be something I want to share with you, Steve, in terms of getting other people on your team. You're going to provide guidance to your team members. Again, you have a direction, you have a vision of where you want to go. If you fine tune how to get there, and again, be open-minded to other ideas, but how you get there will certainly make it more efficient and time-based to help you. But you want to give your team members guidance, and in all different areas, not just in terms of getting the task done, but how do they feel about it? Are they equipped? Do they have enough time? Do they have enough support? And that segues into offering your support, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in terms of consoling them and everything else. You offer people support by giving them the tools. You offer people support by giving them someone other than yourself who is knowledgeable and effective in certain tasks that they need help in. You take it upon yourself to do some research to help them out. And again, having that openness to have this discussion. Because nothing's worse than, and I've seen this in Toastmasters, to have someone on your team who really needs guidance and they disappear. We hear the proverbial, I have family issues. Well, we all have family issues, and I think if you're part of any family organization, you realize there's dysfunction at any point in time. So, you know, to realize that you're still being called to achieve a certain goal and be accountable and have some integrity is really important. So offering support is a little different than giving advice. Your support, I think, means you're giving them the emotional backing and confidence, as you talked about. You want to give them confidence, say, yes, you can do it. The advice is, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And those two can be melded together. It can be to say, I know you can do it because I saw Justin do it. And I'd like you to spend an afternoon with Justin on how he got it done and learn what his tool set is. Or go to Wikipedia and look this up. Go Google these things up. Practice a certain technique, whatever that may be. And what we do here in Toastmasters, and Maria, I hope you get this in waves coming back, is provide feedback. What I love about being part of this club and all of Toastmasters is that giving constructive feedback is one of our base tenets. This is something that we do for each other. And we encourage each other, obviously, to get to that goal. So 5 effective steps of coaching is, again, you compare your expectations with the standards of performance. You meet with each team member. I know when Randy was working with TLI, he struggled with, at some point in time, making sure that he knew everybody on his team what they were doing. And got some feedback on that. We may not always do that the first go around. But a good coach as a leader recognizes that and offers people a chance to get their side of the story told. You want to ask for acknowledgement. I think that goes to the dimension of leadership of appreciation. Everybody wants to have some form of appreciation. Maybe not everybody wants it in public, and some people need the spotlight. Eddie Cater's not here. But it's a solution-based experience. That's what the end result is really all about. We talk about the journey, but it's the solutions that we really find ourselves being changed and being able to reflect on what the experience is all about. I think that when we focus on those and not necessarily the small task, but the big solution, the big picture, then the team says we accomplished the goal. And always, 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 from the minutest detail to, again, the biggest task, is the follow-up. It's one of those things that people make promises And then, as you had said, you met some people, and the follow-up wasn't there. And that shows that you're invested in the effort as much as anybody else. So I'm just gonna go through these things first. You talk with people, you don't talk down to them. You're vulnerable, you admit when you make a mistake. And keep it as simple as possible. I was reminded by world champion public speaking Dana Lamont, who you may not know, he's been legally blind for a long, long time. But he has a master's in math and he's an administrative judge, he has a law degree. But he said, as a blind person, he wants to be effective in two different ways. He wants to be able to say something so that anybody in the room who's blind can hear him, and it's simple enough for a 7-year-old to understand. You put those two elements together, I think you really have good conversation of collaboration. Listen, I mean, we're here to talk about being good public speakers, but, and I do say but, you get better by listening to others. I'm so honored and uplifted when I come to this club because I hear so many good ideas that you guys just don't know how I use them in other aspects of my life. And if I don't, I will start selling you royalty checks at some point. Keep it short and specific. Don't overwhelm people with the details. If they're simple enough, they'll get it. And your sincerity. You can't, they say fake it till you make it, but that only carries you but so far. I really don't recommend that. If you're going to be vulnerable and going to be honest, you need to admit what you do not know, and Ken did that today. And Ken, I want to offer you my support to help you become knowledgeable so that you don't repeat that, okay? That you feel confident, and that it's a real simple process. It's not magic by any means. But in all sincerity, you kept it real. We appreciate that. And keep it punctual. Something I'm not doing right now, but we'll get there. The benefits of coaching are, again, you're developing high morale. You empower people, and that's what I really believe is the key to having a successful team. That they have both the emotional uplift and passion and the technical toolbox to get things done. You develop people, as Steve was saying, that wherever they're at, and I think something that Eddie is working on documentation management. Everybody can use that. Anybody can use that. And all in all, despite what Charles Barkley says, you are a role model. Everybody is watching you. They may not they may not let you know they're paying attention. And if you're trying to be inconspicuous, they see that as well. But as a leader, you set the example, you set the tone for excellence. And with that, the journey becomes something that you provide so that the destination is enriched by the overall effort. Mr. Toastmaster. Brief Q&A?
Yeah.
Q&A, how about, what, 2 minutes?
Yeah, how much time did I take?
You took 20 minutes and 24
Wow,
seconds, so you
man.
kind of ate up your Q&A time.
I'll take one question from Marie.
Did you have butterflies standing up there doing this still?
In all honesty, a little bit, but
So
not
that
much.
doesn't go away?
No.
Completely.
I have more shame in not being punctual. One question, anybody? Joe?
I was really glad that you brought up the high expectations but also achievable ones in your coaching thing. What I was wondering was, at what point do you realize a goal, or what techniques would you give to realize that a goal might have been too high or too unachievable? Do you take feedback from your team, or what other ways we want to do that?
Yeah, I think when you realize that the deadlines, the time limits keep getting pushed further and further out, I think that becomes something. Or when you do cost benefit analysis, which is something that we hear this all the time in projects, cost overruns. So you have to be able to weigh those instances in there. And the last thing I would always say is, if there's so much emotional turmoil that the team becomes dysfunctional, then you really realize that you're off track. So those are my 3 points.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, evaluation, let's take a minute to
Yes, I will.
jot,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
down some
The
feedback.
evaluation is on the back page of the handout I gave you.
Yeah, just give me a minute. Madam Chairman.
He's gonna go.
One minute.
All right, I'd like to bring up actually Tyree, and then also Paula Foster, who is evaluating Tyree. Paula.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and especially Tyree. Thank you, Tyree. Tyree, this was one of those presentations that take time, and I didn't know how many times you practice this in terms of all of the information, but it certainly needed the 20 minutes that you took. So I appreciate the fact that you went ahead and just delved into that and did that. The things I saw really nicely done, obviously very great visuals. Those are things provided by Toastmasters International, so they're nice and clean and crisp, and they say exactly what you did. You worked with the visual that you were looking at very nicely. Couldn't really, wasn't like you had your eyes glued to that, so very nicely done. Your speaking rate is so nice. You have variety in the tone that you use. You use it to accent words when you wanted it. You use pauses. So the vocal part of this presentation was nicely done. It wasn't one of those things that I think we felt like, and you kind of realize that the tone is so monotone that you're falling asleep and you can't really pay attention. And I think that was very well done. You connected with the audience via personal stories. You used us in the audience as examples several times during the meeting or during your presentation. And I think that brings us all in, especially when you're mentioning me or whoever it is. They say, oh yeah, it's very nicely done. Two things that I think possibly to improve upon. It would have been interesting, I think, to maybe see a visual that was not just words, that was something more picture, if it applied. The other thing was that you pretty much stood right here and didn't move. So it was, you moved this way, but your feet were planted here where I think you have the opportunity to come over here and move around a little bit to the space. And might have added a little bit more to it in that sense. Also, part of the time that was taken, because you used those examples, maybe understanding, okay, it looks like I'm running out of time. I need to cut that example down to just a line instead of a longer story. Could have possibly helped the timing a little bit. And now I'll open it up to the group. Any comments? Allison.
I love this speech. As you know, I am a leader for my business, and I'm ultimately responsible for every decision, every person. every firing, every hiring, every result. And I learned a lot that are things that I do but are good reminders, and you model this so well that I really hear you. I think when you make a point that says that you are your model and then you do it, that really strengthens the speech. The structure, I got it from the structure. It was so well absorbable, so easily absorbable. And it's intelligent content based on experience. So that really, it was something I could use. And I rarely hear that from people who are very elevated leaders. So thank you. And I'm not going to go on and on. I just want to say also, you specifically gave examples, which is something we tend not to do so much in here because I don't hear it. But that's where you get it. You know, it's a marketing 101. You know, if you're going to say do this principle, you got to say here's an example. And I love how you did that, the climbing the hill. Like we all get that. And then what I would like better, a checklist on how do you. What are some of the tools that you can give your team to support them? Or how do you solve these issues if you have, you know, people who are not participating?
Great. Steve?
Tyree, you brought us all in. On a personal level, you brought me into it based on my new position with the trio, and I appreciated that. And you're my mentor on it, so that's going to be helpful. One of the things I'd like you to do is I'd like you to do the same presentation but make your own slides. Because what I've noticed with the Toastmaster ones, they're real crisp, but there's a lot of words.
Yeah.
And you could get your message out with a couple of graphics or images, and that would put more of Tyree into it, and you're the one that makes the presentation good. So, anyway.
Write that down.
I did.
Justin?
I love your presentation. The one thing I don't think I did here is, as a coach, as a leader, you're not only leading and coaching your folks, you're also learning from them as well. And every time, I've been a coach for over 10 years, of little kids, big kids. Every year I'm looking at things, items, events, situations where I can learn and get better, because that means they get better too. So.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I'm going to return control to our Toastmaster. Return the meeting, not control.
Thank you,
Return
Paula.
the meeting.
At this point, we still have time to do table topics, and I'd like to bring up our topic master. Table topics is where you get to come up and speak off the cuff for 1 minute to 2 minutes. They give you a topic that is interesting. It may be similar to your boss. You see your boss in the elevator and they say, so what's notable today? So you've got a split second to think about it, and then you say something intelligent. That's what tabletop is preparing you to do, because you never know. Mr. Thomas Cloney is our topic now. Thomas.
Justin. All right. The theme today is collaboration. Let me read out what it is. Working with others to do a task and achieve the shared goals. And most collaboration requires leadership, although the form of leadership can be social without any decentralized and egalitarian group. In particular, teams that work collaboratively can obtain greater resources, recognition, and reward when facing competition for finite resources. That's the theory. Remember, you've got to try and use the word of the day, explicable, understandable, not too difficult. All right. First up is joy. Come on, please.
Yeah!
All right. I know you work with Helen Wang, right?
I used to.
Used to. Okay.
We both changed companies at the same time.
Okay.
There was no collaboration on that one.
Ooh, yeah.
All right. Let's not go off any tangents.
I know that you've told me many times that when you did work with Helen, she frequently wanted to borrow a lot of money from you right before payday. So how did you manage to keep harmony and still collaborate with Helen Lang?
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Helen and I worked in sister companies, which meant she frequently was in my office to work on a project. I don't know what Helen's spending habits are, and I'm not here to comment on them, but she occasionally needed to borrow money right before payday. The first time this happened, it made sense. We all fall short. I gladly loaned Helen the money. The second time this happened, I began to question what was going on. The third time this happened, I knew we had to make things more explicable. Helen, what do you spend your money on? I asked her kindly. Odds and ends, I really don't know where the money goes, she said to me. Helen, I don't either, I responded. Why don't we draw a budget? Because I could use some help in this regard as well. Helen looks at me and says, oh, gee, Joy, you always have such great solutions. So I said, Helen, first off, I tend to spend a lot of money going out for drinks. I should not do that. And she goes, I probably drink more than the average Joe. So we decided to stop spending money on drinks. Of course, I knew she needed money at this time, so we collaborated with our group to get her the money for this paycheck. But nothing changes without improved habits. So Helen and I decided to stop going out for drinks so often, because it's not good for us anyway. The second thing I said, Helen, how often do you get your hair and nails done? And if you know Helen, she is a glamorous person. Always has her hair did and her nails. And I said, maybe go to the beauty parlor once a month versus 3 times a week. We agreed with this, and slowly but surely we improved Helen's habits and kept harmony in the friendship. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
All right, let's invite up. The next victim is Bob.
Thank you.
Come on up, Bob.
All right, Bob.
Here, Charlie. Okay. I'm going to give you a family background. You live with your wife, and her mother moves in with you too, your family, and she's very elderly. She has extremely sensitive hearing, so you can't play any music or have the TV on. Very, very picky about her food. Drives me crazy with everything she dislikes. How do you collaborate with your wife and her mother?
Have I ever told you about my mother-in-law? When you're elderly, you've developed habits of your own, you've led a life of your own, and suddenly you see the whole world as your own. You often forget about the family that you've raised and the friends that you have, which you now know are that these family and friends are yours, and you control them in many different ways. This is totally explicable with age, as they have always lived a life on their own, or always lived a life of their own, and as you get older and the world gets in many ways smaller and you have less control over so many things, you grab and seize control of those things that are close to you. So how I created harmony in my household is I embraced my mother-in-law, knowing that every good deed that I provided to her, every good moment that I had with her would lead me to many better moments with my own life.
Whoa! Man, that's one of Chanel number 5.
Come up, Steve. Some time ago, you and I mentored a club together, right?
Lift every voice.
Lift every voice. Now, and we both know, there are a lot of characters in that club. Very unusual people. I still go there, I'll be going next month. And when they tell their sad stories, enormous, the suffering and often painful lives they've been through, yet still they're very optimistic. In your dealings with them, and you probably deal with a lot of very different people, how did you find, was it tricky to handle people like that? Maybe could upset them?
How did you get the collaboration?
Good question. Very interesting. Lift Every Voice is a club on Hagenberger that has a lot of people with various challenges. Some were drug abusers, some grew up in poverty, some talked about sexual abuse, incest, just completely across the board. Thomas and I were mentors when it was a new club. We would go in, there'd be 3 to 4 speeches. People would give their speech, and it was gut-wrenching. And Thomas and I would just listen. And after about 3 months, one of the speakers didn't show up. And I said, I want to talk about a little bit about my life a little bit. And I got up and I said, I have so much respect for all of you. And you're coming here, you're telling your stories. Each time you give us a speech, you get stronger. And I grew up in Alameda. When I was growing up, I lived in 2 houses. I lived in one house until I was 10, and my parents moved and lived in the other house until I got married. And we would, go on these vacations. We wouldn't go on major vacations to Hawaii or Europe or anything like that, but I just had this really easy time growing up, and it was an amazing thing because they tell these stories. There was one woman that told a story, and she just had this real glow. Her eyes were just alive, and she finished the story, and the last thing she said was, "My son just got out of prison and we're a family again." Wow. And I looked at Thomas and I said, I had a couple of weird things happen to me yesterday, but that I wasn't happy with. But just the stories were unbelievable. And then, after the meeting, I went to work, and then I went home with my wife and had dinner and had my nice life. But it was fascinating. So, thank you.
All right, Maria, would you like to come up? Give it a shot.
Yes.
So you're interested in public speaking, right?
Yes, I
Are you-
am.
Are you also interested in leadership? Is this a leadership club?
And leadership is something that is very interesting to me.
Okay. I don't know if you've been a project leader, but if you haven't, dream one up. Imagine you've been in a situation where you had to cooperate with another project leader, and there's real dislike between you. I mean, real tension in the room. But somehow you've got to resolve this to just get along. How do you do that?
Okay. Do I tell a personal story about myself or something?
You can.
Okay. Well, maybe I can talk about something that happened to me when I was younger, and I was in a basketball team. I've always loved basketball. It's my sport. It's where my heart is. So in this team, there was 2 leaders. It was myself and another young girl. At the time, we were 14. And we had a conflict of interest we had conflicts of how we wanted our team to present out in the court when we first came up. So my vision was I want the entire team to come in together and stand up in front of everybody and basically just do a little cheer, get everybody involved and get everybody, pumped up for the game. Well, this other young lady wanted something totally different. She wanted everybody to come in, just go crazy in the crowd and just start running around through the crowd and getting everybody involved. To me, that was a little silly and a little just weird, actually. So I fought her on it, but I tried to do it in a way that instead of being opposing with her, it was more like I tried to find a common ground. So I said, you know what, I think your idea of getting the audience involved is awesome. I'm with you, let's do it. But maybe instead of going through the audience screaming like crazy people, what we can do is have a couple of cheers, point to the audience can cheer with us. She agreed, we did that, and everybody loved it. We had an awesome season, and we ended up winning 9-10, so it was awesome. Thank you very much.
That's what we have time for. Let's hear again for Toastmaster Justin Lowe.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you all for participating. At this point, we usually vote for the best table topic speaker. The criteria there is within time and using the word of the day. So, Madam Timer, how were they time-wise?
All of the speakers were within the time frame of a minute to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is the max time. We did only have 2 speakers who used the word of the day, and that was Joy and Bob.
Okay, and
Joy
is
and
that
Bob.
Grammarian, Mr. Grammarian? Is that what you had as well?
That is correct.
Okay, so please vote.
Why don't you
Joy,
pass
Bob,
them around
with
this way up
the
to me?
Votes to Paul.
Yep.
And at this point, the meeting is essentially almost complete. We would like to hear some feedback from our general evaluator. So let's bring up Randy Ellington again. Randy. Welcome back, Randy.
Thank you, Justin. Fellow Toastmasters, in the course of this evening, we've had a very good meeting. It is now my pleasure to review the meeting, but first I need to call on the other people that were part of the evaluation team. Starting with our timer, Bukowski.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. This is how the time played out this evening. Tyree as inspiration, 53 seconds. Allison as humorous, 2 minutes. Our 2 speakers, what I did was we generally allot 20 minutes for their presentation. So your speech, Steve, including your Q&A, was 20 minutes, 30 seconds. So you hit it on the nose. And Tyree, you were 20 minutes and 24 seconds. So you both actually qualified in the overall time frame that we allot you. Ken, as your general your evaluation session, you were 5 minutes 33 seconds, and I was 5 minutes 28 seconds. So you were a couple of seconds over, and I was a couple of seconds under. And our 4 table topic speakers: Joy 149, Bob 107, Steve 2 minutes and 6 seconds, and Maria 1 minute and 40 seconds. That is how the time played out.
Thank you. Our out-counter this evening is Joy Amir.
Thank you, General Evaluator. Steve, you had quite a few ands, about 6 of them, during your speech, but your speech was so long that they came occasionally. There I go. You also had about 5 ums. Ken, you had about 8 ands and 3 ums in your evaluation. Tyree, you had 2 ahs, 4 ands, and 1 Paula, you had 2 ahs during your evaluation. Joy and Bob, we appear to be clean on our table topics. Steve, your table topic had 4 ands. And Maria, you had about 3 ands.
Thank you. For the sake of our guests, one of the purposes of the out-counter is just as a reminder, there's some clubs that use an auto-enroll device, like I learned by having a bell, a regular service bell, go off every time I did out. And that was 30 years ago, and I still hear the bell.
I did too. I grew up in a club that did that too.
Our grammarian this evening was Bob DiMichelli.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator.
And Bing.
Thank you, Ding.
Ding.
So, I really liked, right at the beginning, Justin used diligently. So I've always liked the word, it's a good, strong word. Paula, you said, I'm going to. And I think, Steve. Steve, you made a good 2 good corrections right in a row. You corrected it, I grappled with it. And I think you said, trust us when you meant trust me. Like a good metaphor with Columbus and a good metaphor with helping your grandmother. you talked about what does it mean to me often, but I wondered how, if you might be better be saying, how did this help me? Instead of what does it mean to me, or explaining things. You actually went, I'm going to do this because, it equals because, then you had many so's and ands right there. Going into the next phrase, you should use a more direct transition. Formal leadership and earned leadership is great when you explain it. You really emphasized it. The presence and leadership really strongly pointed those out. What I would say is that in your ending, you kind of toned everything really down. I would ask for a stronger ending. You ended kind of immediately by, I'm going to ask some questions. So I would, although this isn't a grammarian, you kind of lost steam, and the emphasis on what you were concentrating on kind of declined right there. Ken, when you were, it was a short moment that you were up, but I really liked a couple of things that you said when you said, you mentioned newspapers, and you said as an example of, to read the newspaper, you use time reading the newspaper, and you wouldn't do that because you need time to do your work. So it's just a good example of that's not a metaphor, that's a comparison. I think there's a stronger word for the comparison, but I thought it was a comparison. Kyrie, Mr. Metaphor. There are so many, and they're so good. They're often really lead to a great point. So your metaphors are just everywhere. A couple of times, though, in your enunciation, maybe you were trying to say serving leadership, but it sounded a little bit like servant leadership, and I'm not quite sure whether that actually was a phrase.
It is.
It isn't? Okay, great, because it just led me to a few other things. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, I understand how you're phrasing that, but how are we gonna do it? I wasn't quite sure whether you meant how are we going to do it, or just how are we gonna do it? That's a simplification of kind of an expression. Inevitably, vet, iterations, segue into, great usage of words. I really like a couple of times you use the triplets. I often see you do this. I couldn't write them down quickly enough, but they often started with, well, I couldn't write down the triplet. But I do like that, again, you use triplets often. There was a good correction when you said, you were starting to say that role, but you knew that you were going to proceed to discuss many roles, and then you said those roles, and you enunciated all the roles. So I thought that was a very good catch on your part, knowing that you were going to lead into that role of, and then you would go on and on and say several roles. I have a whole page of things written down from everybody, but I just thought those were some of the key points. Again, a really great use of metaphors throughout. I wrote down 15 metaphors, and I just thought, I'll just quit writing them down. They dealt
Send me
with
a copy.
leadership.
They come in and out of my head.
I don't think they went in and out of your head. I thought that they were very good and very appropriate. So, thank you.
I would commend you for a very detailed report, and also your awareness of the lateness of our time. So thank you. Oops. I'm going to give the general evaluators report. Invocation by Tyree was detailed and very insightful, which caused me to think. I like the choice of the word of the day, although it was hard for me to pronounce it. Humorist. I like long stories when there's a payoff, and you did not disappoint me. Table topics, there were very good and insightful questions. And on a side note, I also want to compliment you, Bob, on your questions last week. I'm going to try that. That was a very good approach. All the roles were filled quickly at the start of the meeting, although we had a lot of shuffling around to do. It was done smoothly and effortlessly by our president and then our Toastmaster. A lot of good energy. It's a small meeting for us. We have a lot more members than this, but the energy was still here. I think our guests felt very welcomed. All members of the evaluation team were well prepared and performed their duties well. I'm very pleased, especially the evaluators who were on point, except Paula. Paula cheated. Well, Paula's the winner of the evaluation.
Blew my big dramatic end.
I'm sorry. But you didn't say one fine dude.
One, well, I didn't say what?
One fine dude.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, ignore what I just said. She's got another ending for us. And finally, all the basics were done real well, like the badges out, the sheets were there, we were all prepared. These are small matters, but they pay big dividends. I guess see that we're in order and we start on time, we have a productive meeting, and then we're done on time. That concludes my report, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right.
And that concludes the meeting at this point. Thank you all for participating, and I'm